Welcome YouTube. So today we're going to be looking at the latest Easy box release from Hackthebox, which is a Linux box released a couple of weeks ago by a user called Nightmare. And it's currently got a rating of 3.6 out of 5 from roughly 8,000 users. So let's dive in and look at this. So I've got my Kali Linux system running here. And you can see I'm connected to my VPN. It says initialization sequence completed in the top left. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scan the IP address of the system using a tool which I like to use called Threader 3000. And this will basically scan all of the available ports and see what services are running on any open ports for us. Let's just grab our IP there, 10.129.114.222. And straight away, it's a very quick port scanner. It's already told us that port 22, which is probably SSH, and port 80, which is probably a website, are open. So let's go ahead and while that's finishing running, let's go ahead and just open up our web browser and see what we can see on that website. Pasted the IP address in there, and we've just got kind of a holding page where it says, to raise an IT support ticket, please visit tickets.keeper.htb/rt. So whenever I can see that they're using like a host name or a subdomain like this, as well as an IP address to find the box, I'm going to want to update my ECT host file to reflect that. So if we go back to our terminal, let's just do sudo nano ect hosts. So you can see we're putting in the IP address there, and then we've put in keeper.htb and tickets as a subdomain .keeper. So save that update to our host file. You can see above that our Threader 3000 scan is completed, and the only two ports it did find open is 22 and 80. So what we could do next is actually start running an Nmap scan across the system. So let's go ahead and copy that suggested Nmap scan, which is going to try and do things like identify the host operating system and run some default scripts across the ports identified. And it's also going to output some reports for us. So I'll call those reports TCP, and we'll just leave that running in the background. So let's now go back down to our browser. And now that we've updated that information in our host file, let's go ahead and actually click on this pass through, and you can see in the bottom left it's going to take us through to tickets.keeper.htb/rt. Let's see what we get. Okay, so we get a login page. It looks like the software is called Request Tracker, and it also appears that we've got a version number there, so we've got 4.4.4. So next thing we could do, very quick look on ExploitDB. And see if there's anything So we've got one clear hit there for show pending SQL injection. If we look at that, it's actually referencing a slightly older version, so 4.0.10. So quite likely as we're 4.4.4, this would have been patched. But something to make a note of, and maybe we can come back to this later. Let's see if we can find any default login credentials for Request Tracker. So let's just click on the first hit. Looks like it's a forum associated with the company Best Practical, who make request tracker software. And you can see someone's referencing there that the default password is password. And also someone's referencing the fact that there's a MySQL table of users and they're referencing a username root. So the initial indication just from this result is that we could be looking at a default username of root and default password of password. So we can always try our luck and give that a go. So in this case, we've been really lucky. The first hit that we actually got on our search has provided us with some default credentials, which still work for our web app here. So we are now logged in as root. So we could browse around, see the various things we could potentially do in the system. So first thing I do, let's have a browse. There's actually a ticket in the system, so we can see recently viewed tickets. So why don't we go ahead and have a look at this ticket. So the owner of this ticket is someone called Inogard. Actually, I think that's an L, so that's first name, letter, and then the surname, so L Norgard. That's the owner of this particular ticket, and it's a ticket relating to the Windows client of the password application KeePass. And they've said that they've attached a crash dump from their KeePass program because they're having issues with it. And then we've got the response that they've saved the crash dump from KeePass to the home directory on this system and removed the attachment from this ticket. And then they're going to look at that crash dump at a later point. So the first thing which comes to mind there is if they're giving us a crash dump or a memory dump relating to KeePass, is this a vulnerability we're being kind of pushed to investigate? So let's have a dump KeePass. So we can see actually from just last month there was a new CVE released relating to extracting cleartext master passwords from memory dumps in relation to KeePass. So if they're using the same version, potentially this is the exploit which we're meant to be using later on during this box. So if we browse around the system again, we'll find that we can actually look in the users table and see there are only 2 users in the SQL database relating to this app. One is root and one is Lisa Norgard. So let's have a look at Norgard and see what else we can find. So we've got a comment here that this is a new user setup and the initial password was set to welcome 2023 exclamation point. So we could potentially try and log in the web app as this person, but obviously I'm quite keen to give a login via the SSH service that we found a go using these credentials as well. One thing I will note is that this name's quite interesting and they appear to be using some special characters in the name, or non-English characters should I say. So if we go ahead and just do a search for this name, I want to know a little bit more about this foreign character. Okay, so this was a well-known Danish journalist. So this is from the Danish language. These boxes often give us clues, so we want to keep in mind that potentially we're going to be having to use special characters at some point on this box, and Danish characters are being used. Okay, so let's go back to our SSH. So we can see in the top right hand corner that our mmap scan is finished. It's telling us that it's running a pretty new version of OpenSSH, and also that the web service is Nginx 1.18.0. Again, if we think we can find some vulnerabilities with that, we could start to look into that version as well. But for the moment, I'm keen to just try out these new credentials that I found. So let's do SSH lnorgard at our IP address, which is 10.129.114.220. And it's asking us for a password, and the password we found was welcome2023! Great, so we have low privileged user access to the system keeper now. So the first thing I normally do when I land on a system, obviously I'll just check, double check who I am and where I am. lnorgard on keeper. And the next thing I like to try is if we can actually run any sudo commands. So I need to put the password again. Sorry, the user may not run sudo on keeper. Okay, so nothing to explore there. Let's see what's in our home directory that we've landed in. So first of all, we have our user.txt flag. So typically this is the first of two flags that we'll need to submit as part of this box. So we'll go ahead and just verify that we can read that file. We'll do a word count so we don't do any spoilers in this video. So 33 characters, that sounds about right. The next thing we'll see is that we've got a zip file there. So let's see if we can just unzip this zip file. And it looks like we've opened that zip file, and it actually has a DMP file. So this is going to be our memory dump that was mentioned in the ticket, no doubt. And we've also got a passcodes.kdbx, which is going to be a KeePass database of passwords. So quite keen to get into that passcodes file. So first of all, what we need to do is I want to transfer these two files down to my Kali system. So let's just use this on the right there. I'm just going to first of all check that my SSH service is actually up and running on my Kali system. You can see it says active running there, so that's fine. I also think that service is running on 2222 on my local Kali host, so I'm just going to do a netstat to just verify that something is listening on that port, and it is, so that's great. So let's go ahead and see if we can actually use SCP to secure transfer some files back to our Kali system. So we've used SCP here, we've denoted the port 2222, we've told it what file, we're going to start with the dump file, and we're also going to log in with the Kali on the Kali IP address, and then we're going to tell it where to put it. So I'm going to put it in boxes, HTB, keeper. I can see I'm actually trying to use the IP address of the keeper box itself. I'm stupid. We look in the top right hand corner, that's actually my IP address of the Kali system. That is the one I should be using. Let's try that again and actually try and use the correct IP address this time. 10.10.14.53. Okay, so now we've got that file transferring back to our Kali system. Check over here, we can see that coming in, which we can. That says it's going to take roughly 1 minute to transfer, so we'll go ahead and fast forward this. Okay, 60 seconds later, and here we are now with our dump file downloaded. The file size looks good to me. That's good. And the next file I'm going to do is our passcodes. Okay, so now we should hopefully have both those files. Now I'm interested in looking at these passwords stored in this KeePass database. So what we can do is use a command line utility called kpcli and see if we can open that file. But as suspected, it's asking us for this master password. So this is where we can actually go back to some of our research that we did here into this KeePass exploit, which was released last month, and see whether we can actually find any interesting exploits on GitHub that we can maybe use to try and extract the master password from this password dump file here. So the first one we're going to go ahead and try is this one here. So it's just a single Python file. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy out the raw information there. Okay, so let's go back to our terminal, and I'm just going to paste that information into our POC file here. And now we're going to run Python. And we'll just double check how we're meant to run this. Do we just point it directly at the dump file? We use -d, it looks like, as the operator. So let's do -d and then let's dump and see how that goes. Cue the fast forward music. Okay, so that took about 30 seconds. It's given me some results here. It's not entirely clear to me whether that's been successful yet. Referring back to the details of the exploit, it does say, as a reminder, the first character cannot be found in the dump, and for the second character the script will only give 2 possibilities. And then it's suggesting maybe trying some brute forcing on those first 2 characters. So in our case, that would suggest that these 2 characters are not known, and then the rest of the characters are known. We do have these strange characters which aren't being printed properly. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to actually run a second script now, just so I can kind of verify the results. We're going to use this one here. Again, it's just a single Python file. Works in very much the same way. Slightly more parameters for us to put in there. Run it again. Also, we'll use some of the parameters suggested to us on the Git page. Okay, so here's what we've got. So let me just bring in Sublime for a moment. I'm just going to paste in the information we do have into Sublime. There we go. So these special characters seem to be being missed out by the one tool. These look like it's giving us two options for this particular letter. So let's just take the letters that actually seem to agree between these two tools. Let's see what we have and if it means anything to us. So that doesn't really mean anything to me. None of those words look like even English words, to be honest, or names. So as I did with the username of the system earlier when we identified that it was Danish, potentially let's Google this and actually see if we can find any interesting information that can help us relating to this string. Okay, so straight away it looks like we are onto the right track here, because every single hit, or at least the first 3 hits here, are a phrase that's in Danish, which is again using this particular character that we saw in the username. So it looks like potentially this could be our password, which we can try. Let's just go into here and we'll copy out this password. And I'm just going to make this all lowercase so there's no indication in the results that uppercase was being used. So let's go ahead and try and open up our KeePass file again. And this time I'm going to paste in this password that we think is in Danish. And we're in. Okay. So let's see what we've got inside this password database file. So first let's go into passcodes. And we can have a browse around these different directories which contain other potential credentials, but the one we're actually interested in at the moment is in network, where we've got 2 entries. We've got keeper.htb and we've got ticketing system. So first of all, let's have a look at the first one. So we've got a password which we'll be able to see if we actually just copy and pasted that out here. So we do have a potential password which we can try for root. So I'm certainly going to give that a go. And it also looks like we have a putty-SSH key as well. So first of all, let's just try our luck here. So on the left hand side, where we're still logged in via SSH using the Elnorgard user, let's see if we can switch to root. And I'm going to use this password that we just found here. And it doesn't appear to work for us. The other interesting thing inside this entry though is this putty bar here. Let's do a quick look. We do a quick bit of research on this. Let's look at how, just paste that in and say, can we convert that to a private SSH key, which we can use on the command line. So let's have a look at the first hit. Okay, so this is saying that if we use putty-tools, we can actually convert this file, this ppk file, into a private SSH key. This looks what we want here, outputting a private key from a putty formatted key file. Putty-gen ppk, use private OpenSSH as extracting the private key, and then export that as my OpenSSH key. Okay. So first of all, let's just make this smaller again. And let's paste in this key. We're going to want to clean this up a little bit here. I'm just going to sweep these lines here, and then I think it's Control-Shift-L, yep, so that we can actually and bring it all into line so it's nice and neat. Copy that again. Let's go back to our terminal up here, and let's do nano server.ppk. Paste in our key there. And now we're going to use the command that we found online there to extract out private key information. So it looks like we do have our key there now. Let's see how that looks. Pretty good to me. We're going to need to modify the permissions on that to make sure that it's actually the correct setting for use with SSH. And then finally, let's see if we can use that file to log in as root. The IP address. Great, so it looks like we're now root on the KeePass system. Do a quick ls. See that. There is our root flag in root.txt. So that was a very quick but fun system. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that quick walkthrough of the box Keeper. We saw the risk of using default credentials on externally facing services like your web apps. And we also saw a very recent exploit released last month relating to the password manager KeePass, and how if an attacker has access to your memory or a dump of your memory, they might be able to extract your master password if you were using an outdated version of KeePass. Obviously, the way to mitigate this risk in future is to update your version of KeePass to the latest release. But if you do have any old memory dumps lying around on your system, it just highlights the risks they may pose. So obviously, get rid of those. Don't be storing old data that can pose a risk to you in future. Okay, thanks for joining in. We'll see you on the next one.